Hello friends, this is Dr. Francis Myles. Today I want to give you a supernatural story that I hope and pray is going to encourage you. This supernatural story is called How God Saved My Father with His Audible Voice. And the reason I really felt led of the Lord to tell it is because somebody out there is believing God for loved ones to come in the kingdom, especially the ones that look like they have no time for God. And you're worried about the eternal destiny of their lost souls if they do not come to the Lord. That was my biggest dilemma when I came to faith. In 1989, I was radically born again by a divine encounter with Jesus Christ. I fell in love with Jesus. I went head over heels in love with Jesus. I used to hate church. My father was a staunch Roman Catholic. He would beat me into church. I was afraid more of the road than my desire to go to church, and I couldn't wait for it to be over. So I could not believe how hungry I suddenly became for the church. At every prayer meeting, I wanted to be there. If you just said church, I'm running. There was so much passion to be wherever I thought I would get more of Jesus. In my excitement, I went to see my dad. At that time, my dad was living in a village about 4 hours by bus from me. So I got on a bus, and I could not wait to tell my dad, I am born again. I love Jesus. I'm serving God. And I thought, my God, I gave him this news. He's going to be shouting and getting excited. A child who never loved church now loves the Lord. He wants to go read his Bible. That's what I thought. I went and I met him, and I told him, I said, Dad, I am radically born again. I just found Jesus, or he found me, and I'm changed, and I wanted to know about it. I couldn't wait to share with you. He was quiet. It was not what I expected. And then there was an explosion. You see, my father at the time was a very staunch Roman Catholic who believed that the Pope was the only person on earth Jesus can talk to. So when I told him I'm saved and I'm going to this Assemblies of God church, we have worship services, we have this, all he heard was, I've left the papacy. You have left the Catholic Church. He blew up. I've never seen him that angry in my entire life. I was devastated because I thought he was going to be excited for me. He was not. He was disappointed in me, embarrassed. He said to me, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with the Catholic Church? Why do you need this? And it got so bad, he denounced me from being his son. He told me, if you don't recant, I never want to see you again. My mother is crying in the background. She's begging. She's caught between the two men she loves, her son and her husband. But I had found Jesus to such a degree, I was willing to give up my father for him. So that's what I did. I cried my whole way on the bus going back. And when I got to the city where I lived, the Holy Spirit spoke to me, pray for him. I said, what? I said, pray for him. So every week I prayed. I was on my knees. I bruised my knees for the salvation of that man, for my father to come to faith. About a year went from the time he denounced me from being his son. Then one day I went into my office at the accounting firm where I was working, and lo and behold, who do I see? Waiting for me at the door to the office was my dad. When I saw him, I panicked because I'm thinking my mother must be dead, because I know my dad. He was a very proud man, very difficult to change when he makes up his mind. So I'm thinking the only thing that can make this man come and see me, my mother is dead. So I start crying. I said, what's wrong with mom? That's what I said. Is she dead? He said, why would you think that? I said, what are you doing here? That was very awkward, but that's what I said. He said, well, can we sit down in your office? I want to talk to you. And here comes the story. He says to me, my son, I've come here because I want to find the God you found. I almost fell off my chair. I said, what? You want to find the God I found? What happened? He said, well, it began about 2 weeks ago. He says, my son, I've never heard the voice of God in my life. I know God as a concept. Yes, I believed. I went to whatever I got from the Catholic Church. I believe that's all there was. But I never thought God talks to people today, let alone me. He said I was doing my normal routine of praying through the rosary. My father would pray through the rosary, the 66 beads that are in the rosary. He knew every chanting of every bead. And so he would do that once a day. And so he began to do it in his bedroom. He knelt down and began to say, Hail Mary. As soon as he said Hail Mary, he said he heard a loud, audible voice. And the voice called my father by middle name. He never wanted anybody to call him by that name, including my mother. So all of us knew we never called our dad by his middle name unless you wanted to get in trouble. But God chose to use that name. He called him by his Middle African name and said to these words, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's not the way they worship me. Ask me how. He panicked. He had never heard this kind of voice before. He stopped, he dropped the rosary, bolted, he told me, out of the bedroom because he thought he was losing his mind. So the following day, he decided, I'm going to pray in another bedroom. He kind of thought maybe there was witchcraft in the other bedroom. So I need to change rooms. If I change rooms, this voice surely can come back a second day. So he went to another bedroom and he knelt down to begin to pray. As soon as he said, Hail Mary, same name, same voice. I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's not the way they worship me. Ask me how. My father, he said, I dropped the rosary again, son. I was terrified. At this point, he said, I thought I'm losing my mind. I thought there's some people is really praying, some witches are really praying some amazing voodoo or some things on me. That's what he thought. So for 2 days, he never touched the rosary because which was a big deal because he was attached to that rosary. He had to pray it every day. But for 2 days, he was terrified of the voice. So finally, the third time, he told me, Francis, I thought surely if I stay in the sitting room where everybody, there's no way this voice is going to find me there. So he goes on the sitting room, and then he opens the door so he can see people on the outside. He thinks, he put all the things he could put in together. He thought this voice would be terrified of all the people looking through and all the noise outside. So that's what he did. He knelt down and he began again. Hail Mary, Mother of God, and the voice came. Now this time, the voice called him by his English name. Daniel, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's not the way to worship me. Ask me how. He said to me, son, at that moment, like little Samuel, who kept going to Eli, thinking Eli was calling him when it was actually the audible voice of the living God of the Bible. He said, on the third attempt, something broke in me. He said it was like the dams broke inside of me, Francis. I began to weep like a baby. I cried. My wife walked in, what is going on? She thought it was a funeral. I couldn't stop myself. I kept crying. And when he had stopped crying, he said the voice spoke to him for the fourth and final time. He said, Daniel, I want you to get on a bus. Go and see your son Francis. He knows the way. So my father gets on that bus to come and see me. And that's how he ends up at my office. Tears are running down my face. This is not how I expected God to reach him. But you see, we serve a supernatural God. He has multiple ways he can save even members of your family that you have come to become convinced they are so gone, they are so lost, there is no way they will turn to Jesus. Or you know what? God is saying, watch me. My father tells me, Francis, this is why I'm here. The Lord told me you know the way. So guess what? That day, in my office, I was given a privilege by Jesus to lead my own father to Christ. 1 year after he denounced me from being his son. He apologized, said, I'm so sorry, I was a blinded man, but I now know you have something I don't have. God. And I led him to the Lord. He was filled with the Spirit. I mean, the power of God came upon him. It was amazing. Radical transformation. After he got born again, my dad went back to the village. My mother said, where did you go? He said, I went to see our son. My mother started smiling because she didn't know what, he never thought about the encounter. You know, he kept quiet, he kept it to himself. She just was happy. So you guys have reconciled? Yes, we have, but there's something more. And he said to my mother, sit down and gather all the children. All my brothers and sisters came together. And yes, Dad, he sat on a chair and he said, my children, my wife, I am radically born again. I have found the one they call Jesus. Somebody who was a mystical figure has become real to me. And my father began to weep. I now know what it means to be born again. I know what Francis came to tell me, even though I got so mad. I now have it. And he said, I've resigned my position at the Catholic Church where I used to be an elder. I've done it. You know, I am done. I'm going to follow this new path and see where Jesus leads me. My mother said, what happens to us then? He says, well, if you want to follow me in your faith in Jesus, he will receive you too. So in that moment, my father, this new convert, barely 1 week old in the Lord, leads my mother and all my brothers, so my whole family comes to salvation in 1 day. I want to encourage you out there not to give up on your family. Don't give up on your loved ones. Keep praying. Keep believing God. We serve a supernatural God who has millions of ways he can reach your loved ones, even the ones you think are a hopeless case. This is my supernatural story. Amen.